lot of land that is part of the Ottoman Empire. And the question is, what do you do with that land? Woodrow Wilson and the League of Nations said, what we're going to do is we're going to give it to whoever lives there. Whoever lives on that land now is the sovereign of their own country. Well, they took Palestine, and they said, there's half the people, a little over half are Jews, a little under half are Arabs. So we're going to cut it in two, and we're going to give half, part of the Jews, part of the Arabs. But there was so much anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic bigotry at that time that they gave 4/5 of it to the Arabs and 1/5 to the Jews, just a tiny sliver 9 miles across to the Jews, tiny, tiny little piece of land with their sacred sites that were not Muslim sacred sites ever. So, that's how.
I can't. It's just so much shit spewing from his face. So he's not correct in what he's saying. And when you're going into the history of like the Ottoman Empire and the Allied nations, yes, the Ottoman Empire was in decline at the start of World War I, and that was essentially what led to its decline. And part of the reason why the Ottoman Empire did have its ultimate decline was because the Allied nations worked their magic in getting the Arab nations to fight amongst each other. They were really successful at that, and they've continued to be really successful at keeping the Arab nations to, basically fight against brother against brother. There was land that was provided to the Jews following World War II and after the Holocaust. And the Palestinian people were actually pretty open to providing them with a safe haven because the Holy Land had been a safe haven for lots of different people at lots of different times. And during the Ottoman Empire ruled for a very long time. I believe it's between like 600 and 800 years, kind of depending on where you're looking at. And during that time, there was also like the Dark Ages that was going on in the European nations. And that was actually a safe haven for Jews in the Ottoman Empire. Because of their difference of religion, there was a little bit of like, I think it was like in relation to taxes, like the Jews might pay like a little bit more in taxes and things like that, just because of the way that the 5 pillars of faith in Islam work. There's a lot of donations that are given to the poor and things like that. But the Jews were given a safe haven place during the Ottoman Empire and also after its decline in Palestine. And I believe it was like between like 45 and maybe 80,000 Jews were provided with safe haven because of what had happened. But the Palestinians were not prepared for their borders, because it was their borders at the time, to just be completely opened to the Jewish settlers to come in and take over their land at the behest of the Allied nations that, yes, they had been fighting against. The way he talks about this, like, oh, how dare the Palestinians be on the opposing side? Well, of course they're going to be on the opposing side because they're fighting against what to them is an oppressive colonialist regime coming into their country, wanting to take things that they don't believe are theirs. We would do the same thing here if Russia came and invaded the East Coast.
Or Mexico decided, exactly, oh, I'm taking back the land that you guys already took from us. Like, people don't realize that these borders have changed hands many times. And how far up did it go, Steve? Like, it went into like California, right? Mexico?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, and so people.
Yeah, almost up to Washington.
Yeah, people forget that. Like, we've already, like, this is the same playbook. If you look at what the United States has done, this is the same type of thing. And we need to recognize that these patterns are happening. And if he's willing to ignore that it's happened here and that it's happening currently, and Palestinian people are being kicked out of their own homes and occupied, then what is he going to do? What do you think his foreign policy really? How would his foreign policy look? really
Very pro-Israel.
Yeah. Like, is this what people are really like okay with this? I don't know how. All right, I'm gonna mute and play some more. Let's see how far we can get.
Oh, that was the original distribution. And then in the 48 war, when Israel got its statehood, they were immediately attacked by by Egypt, Jordan, Syria, all the surrounding countries, and Lebanon, and miraculously beat them off. The Palestinians were on the side of the attackers. In all of those countries, all the Jews were expelled. So all of those countries expelled every Jew in the country and took away something like 27 million square miles of land that were just taken away from them. And those Jews were all sent to Israel. Israel did not do that to the Jews, to the Palestinians in Israel. It allowed them to stay. And then, it's
They allowed them to stay. Do you want me to stop or do you want me to keep going?
It's one of those things where I'm really trying to understand like what he's trying to say, because it's making it seem like any confrontation that the Arab world and Palestinians have had against I want to say Israelis, but I guess at that time it was the Jews, is horrific, horrendous, and can't be done. But when Israelis are doing it to Palestinians, it's because the Palestinians are terrorists and shame on them. I go back to if Russia was to invade the east coast of the United States, I don't think people would just be like, sure, take my house. That's cool.
No, we would not.
And it seems like that's what he's expecting. And again, it's the whole thing of like, yes, Palestine did provide some safe harbor for Jews following the Holocaust because of the atrocities that were committed against them during the Holocaust from the German Nazis.
And then what did they do? They are literally they just keep pushing and want more and more and more.
And that's the thing. He talks about this sliver of land that was provided to the Jews. And yes, that is true. There was this particular area of land where it would give them access to their holy sites and be able to practice their religion freely and all of those things. But to act like, because they've given this, now they need to give over everything. And that has been the constant rhetoric from like both main political parties and serious advocates for Israel, is acting like the Palestinians are the main aggressor in this situation. When you don't have a formalized military and you don't have billions of dollars being given to you from foreign countries, I don't think you're the aggressor in that situation. And when you respond to that aggression, the peak of hypocrisy, in my opinion, is acting like Palestinians, how dare they be responding to the aggression that they receive. I would expect nothing less from if someone was to be an intruder in someone's house. Like I would fully understand and expect you to want to be able to keep you and your family safe if someone is coming at you with a knife or a gun or something like that. Like, and that's where his rhetoric is so distant from the realities on the ground. It's obvious that he's never been to Palestine and spoken to Palestinians. He's never been to Gaza and spoken to Gazans and Gazan children and seen the atrocities that Gazan children are having to experience on a daily basis. He's just touting a lot of shit and I don't like it.
I don't either, but I'm glad that you're here to help like unpack this, because I mean, it's just like talking point after talking point. Like he really has this down. Like he really has these talking points down.
It's pretty obvious that someone is in his ear, or someone's,